It's back. CF105 Avro Arrow. Okay, I made a couple of videos. This is a model kit I bought. Oh, geez. I don't know how long ago. I never put it together. Someday I probably might, maybe over this winter, if I get some paint and stuff, I pick up some more paint. All my tester paints are all dried out. But I used to build a ton of models and stuff like that. Now, I used to also work at the National Aviation Museum in Ottawa. And I was probably one of the few people to ever sit in the nose cone of the, not the nose cone, but the nose of the cockpit of the Avro Arrow. I'm pretty sure anybody that worked there probably jumped into it. So I'm one of the very few people who can actually tell you exactly what it's like to have sat in one of these things with the nose wheel down. It was quite the experience, and I sat in both cockpits. They're a clamshell cockpit. This one, that little window there, that's all you could see. It was the navigator, radio controller guy back there. You could fly the airplane from, remotely from the rear cockpit too. So I made a video, CF105 Avro Arrow BS, the F-35 Lightning. And I also made another one, Avro Arrow VS, F4 Phantom VS MiG-25. Airplanes that were kind of in the general era that this thing flew. Now, there's a lot of things that people have really been taken to the comments on that one. The Arrow for Canadians is probably one of the biggest turning points in Canadian history. It's not the airplane itself, it's what it could have led to. Right, Mr. Chipmunk? What could the Avro Arrow have led to? What do you think? Well, I'm asking you. Say something. There's always animals interrupting my videos anyway. Well, say something. You gonna make a run for it? Or are you just gonna stand there? Hey, you don't know what to do, eh? You don't even have an answer. Answer the question. Answer the question. I said answer the question. Dude. Okay. I know. Got sidetracked. Maybe he's a spy. Eh? Alright, anyway, enough bugging him. He's just a nut anyway. So, okay, so as I was saying, that was random. As I was saying, for Canadians, this was a big loss. It wasn't just the jobs of the day. That was bad enough. It was like the jobs in the future. What were we going to lose in the long run? And what did we lose in the long run? Well, NASA can tell you. What are you doing? Okay, you still haven't answered my question. This guy's like being a pest. If it's not my cats and dogs, it's a chipmunk. You better not be around if my dog eats those things, eh? Here's again. So anyway, it's what we lost in the long run. Was the aerospace industry for Canada. That was the start of the aerospace industry of Canada. The thing you have to understand is this airplane went from drawing papers to production. There was no prototype. They did it to cut cost. On its maiden flight, there was one switch, that didn't work, and that was it. And this was technically one of the first fly-by-wire airplanes. It had electric servos in it to operate the hydraulic, controls. So you didn't have all these push rods and cables and stuff going through the airplane. It was just basically wires to the servos, much like a remote control airplane now. Only difference is the controller was in the cockpit. So we lost a lot when the Arrow program got canceled. And the cost of replacing it with the CF100 Voodoos was almost the same cost to complete the program. But the benefits in the end were lost. That's the thing. It was a cost overrun project for sure. But comparison to the F-35. Well, the F-35, they have a few flying prototypes. The thing isn't in active service yet. Too big to fail. I say too complicated to win. Just too complicated to work. This thing wasn't really that complicated considering nowadays, but it was very innovative in its day. But I mean, it could have been refined, and that's what we lost out on. What would this have been refined to? So it makes me kind of think, well, what kind of airplane does Canada really need? Why was this thing built in the first place? Well, a lot of people don't realize this thing was built to do mainly intercepting of bombers, Russian bombers, but it was also going to be with some drop tanks put on it for ferry range. You could patrol with it, but it also had another nasty job that most people don't want to talk about, and this was designed to actually launch or drop nuclear bombs as well. It just never got to that stage of it. It was in the works, and it was big enough. It could have accommodated, the same as a B-25 Mitchell that had about a 4,000-pound payload at the time. By today's standards, it's about half. But you got to, even with the massive wing loading, I think it could carry more. It's just where the hell did you put it? It's the Bombays were, it's. I don't think it was a weight problem. I think it was just a space problem. There's just you couldn't put a bigger weapon in it just because there was no place to hang it. But there was designs for a nuke to be in the belly in later variants, but it never got there. And I'm kind of glad it never did in a way, But it would have been nice to see it as an interceptor. But this really would have been only good at going after mainly bombers. The CF-100 would have to fly alongside it to do the twisty dog fights with the fighters. And beside the CF-100s would probably still be the F-86 Sabres doing the dog fighting. Giving the time, or the Starfighters. Those would have been the fighter airplanes Canada had at the day. I don't know if the Starfighter was in service before or after. I think it was after the Arrow program. But just to give you a rundown of what fighters Canada had, starting with just the jet fighters, our most numerous fighter we ever had was the F-86 Sabre. We had about 1,800 of those, most of them made by Canada Air. Then the first one was the de Havilland Vampire. We had a handful of those. And then I think we may have had the Meteor as well, the Gloucester Meteor, but we mainly had the Vampire. And then not long after, we went to the F-86 Sabre, which the Korean War broke out not too long after World War II, and that was our main fighter of the day. But we also had the H-2F3 Banshee. That was kind of our multi-rolled Navy airplane when we actually had the Bonneville, the HMS Bonneville aircraft carrier. That was, one of the few aircraft carriers we ever had. I think we had two, one in World War II and then one in, then the Bonneville. Unless it was the same one and just got updated. I can't remember the history on that, so if you know, just quote. So we had that, and that was a nifty little airplane, and that was the first airplane to be able to launch an air-to-air missile, was the Banshee. The F-86 Sabre was a dogfighter, and it even still to this day, on a maneuverability basis, the F-86 Sabre still could knock down airplanes in a guns-only battle. It is a maneuverable airplane. It had a roll rate of 400 degrees a second. Its turning radius, not so great, but better than a lot of heavier airplanes. It'll probably make a full turn in at least 20 seconds. That's comparative to a lot of airplanes. Problem is the engines couldn't get it much, effectively to fight above 35,000 feet. Most of them couldn't. Man, the flies are getting bad. There's my cat. Okay, it's one of those days where it's really hot and humid, and the flies are bad. So I might go hide in the trailer like a wuss. So anyway, the other airplanes that we had that were jets were the CF-101 Voodoo, which replaced the Avro Arrow. Now, the thing to note about the CF-100s is we had them till 1986. We had about 700 of them, and we flew them till about 1986, and then it was replaced by the CF-18s. If you really look at the lines of the CF-101, or the CF-100 and the CF-18, there is a lot of similarities. We also had the F-5, and we had a Canadian Air version of the F-5, was known as the 116, the CL-116. That was mainly a trainer, but or you could consider it a day fighter or whatever you wanted to consider it. And it would do it. It would do the job. But at the time, the most advanced we had would have been the Voodoo. The Voodoo also served till 1986. The idea was not to have like a ton of airplanes, just one really good one. So the CF-100 or the F-18 comes along, pretty much fills the role Canada needs. And I don't care what the CF-100, the CF-18 is a phenomenal airplane. Does it need replacing? Well, if you're looking for stealth aircraft, yes. If you're looking for airplanes that can have more, navigational equipment for the Arctic, then yes. Because although you could attach pods to the CF-18, the problem is this thing, the idea behind this, and this is why it was built, was to get rid of ground radar. Because the CF-100s, they could fly in all weather, and they were stationed in Belgium, and we sold a lot to Belgium, actually. But the end of the day, when other airplanes were grounded due to fog and stuff, the CF-100 was the airplane that could do it. But it was a straight-wing fighter. It was outdated the day it rolled off the assembly line. But it was a good, reliable airplane. And, it it was maneuverable enough, but it was even to today's standards, it would be considered an average size fighter. It was big. It wasn't small like the F-86 Sabre. It was, almost twice as long. It was it was 50 somewhat 52 to 54 feet long. It's same size dimensionally as pretty much a CF-18. Oh, another little airplane I forgot, the CL-30, which was basically the T-Bird. We mainly used those for training. We even used those for trainings until we got the newer 145 Hawk, built by Canada Air. I think it was a Hawk. It was based upon the British Hawk anyway. That's what we're using for trainers now. So why was this thing built? That's the key to what we need now. Why this thing was built? Well, what was it supposed to do? Well, we know it was supposed to do. It was primarily designed as an interceptor to fly up, meet the bombers, shoot them down over the North Pole, and that would have been the end of it. It was also designed to fly without the assistance of ground radar, which the CF-100 needed. This thing had a huge nose cone. I mean, it was just massive. It didn't have, like to today's standard again, it could track 12 airplanes, I guess it was designed, I don't know, because we never got to the point where we tested the weapon system to prove it, but it could target 8 airplanes at a time and launch 8 missiles simultaneously, at 8 different bombers within an 8-kilometer range. That's pretty impressive for the day, for 1959. That was impressive. Now, the probability of hit, I don't know about that. Missiles of the day, I know the F-4 Phantom of the, had about 11 or 12% missile success, air-to-air missiles with the AIM-4s or AIM-7s. I can't remember which missile it was, but it would have definitely, without a gun, you were really, really leaving the fate of a strategic nuclear bomber was in the fate of the reliability of the missile. This thing didn't have a gun on it, but I'm sure it would have probably, being Canadian, they probably would have put some sort of big-ass cannon on it, probably a 20 mil or something like that. I can't see why they wouldn't have, because this is, no matter what, would have been more maneuverable than just about any bomber of the day, like actual bomber, like the Badger, the Bear, those type of things, even naval stuff like the Bison, the Fiddler, it probably would definitely, turn with those things, and most of those bombers didn't. Some of them had tail gunners, most of them didn't. I'm talking about the Russian stuff. So the Fiddler, that one would have been really hard to catch, but the Arrow could catch it, and it would have probably, with a cannon, could probably have easily taken it out. Maybe if it was lucky with the missile, could have taken it out. So that was kind of what it was designed for. I'm going to do a part 2. It's back. CF-105 Avro Arrow. Okay, I made a couple of videos. This is a model kit I bought. Oh, geez. I don't know how long ago. I never put it together. Someday I probably might, maybe over this winter, I might get some paint and stuff. I pick up some more paint. All tester paints are all dried out. But I used to build a ton of models and stuff like that. Now, I used to also work at the National Aviation Museum in Ottawa. And I was probably one of the few people to ever sit in the nose cone of the, not the nose cone, but the nose of the cockpit of the Avro Arrow. I'm pretty sure anybody that worked there probably jumped into it. So I'm one of the very few people who can actually tell you exactly what it's like to have sat in one of these things with the nose wheel down. It was quite the experience, and I sat in both cockpits. They're a clamshell cockpit. This one, that little window there, that's all you could see. It was the navigator, radio controller guy back there. You could fly the airplane from, remotely from the rear cockpit too. So I made a video, CF-105 Avro Arrow BS, the F-35 Lightning. And I also made another one, Avro Arrow VS, F4 Phantom VS MiG-25. Airplanes that were kind of in the general era that this thing flew. Now, there's a lot of things that people have really been taking to the comments on that one. The Arrow for Canadians is probably one of the biggest turning points in Canadian history. It's not the airplane itself, it's what it could have led to. Right, Mr. Chipmunk? What could the Avro Arrow have led to? What do you think? Well, I'm asking you. Say something. There's always animals interrupting my videos anyway. Well, say something. You gonna make a run for it? Or are you just gonna stand there? Hey, you don't know what to do, eh? You don't even have an answer. Answer the question.